I'm doing my character analysis on John or the Savage and why he resonated the most with me throughout the story. So, throughout the story, Bernard Marx was the obvious main character, and he annoyed a lot of us with his arrogance and his attitude and his demeanor. And I feel as if once Lenina went to the reservation, we were really introduced to more of like a cultural divide, and John kind of was symbolic of that throughout the story. He showed that although he was an outsider in both the world state and the reservation, that the two societies were not that much different in their radical ways. And on the reservation, I felt as if John had really showed us that he is capable of emotions and reactions that were complex and nothing to those of the citizens of London. And in one part in the story, um, Linda remarks that John was a great comfort to her, and she doesn't know what she would have done without him. Um, and at one time, even though he did get so upset whenever a man, quite as a tiny boy, even once, he tried to kill poor Wahishua, or was it Pope, just because I used to have them sometimes, because I never could make them understand that what was civilized people ought to do. Being's mad, infectious, I believe. So even though John had this pure, innocent sense to protect and love his mother, she really couldn't resonate that with anything because as she grew up in the world state, she didn't really have these complex reactions and emotions. And I thought John did a great job or Huxley did a great job of kind of using John to represent that in the book someone was at least capable of having a sense of morality, a sense of dignity, and like any kind of emotion that wasn't selfishness or greed or towards the world state. I also liked John because he kind of added a more like humorous sense throughout the book, and especially in the last chapters, even though it was a more serious tone. I felt as if John and his introduction to the world state was almost satirical and humorous in a way, especially when he was revealed to be the son of the DHC. It kind of added a sense of like excitement to the plot line and like kind of revealed us to what kind of ending we could be suspecting. One of my most resonated parts of John was his conversation with Bernard towards chapter 8, where they are discussing the value of being married. And John explains that forever in the Indian words, it means it cannot be broken. And Bernard goes, Ford, no, couldn't help laughing. John also laughed, but for another reason, laughed for pure joy. "O brave new world," he repeated, "O brave new world that has such people in it. Let's start at once." So he kind of represents like humanity in a way where we were introduced to joy and laughter, and it wasn't joy from Soma, nor was it joy from appeasing to the world state and a unified government. It was joy that he was actually having a sort of connection with someone that wasn't an, a savage at the reservation or his drugged up mother or his conditioned mother. And it just showed a sense that Huxley, even in dystopian society, had some kind of outline that John would be the one to try to radicalize this idea of humanity and complex emotion due to the fact that he could actually feel these things because he was exposed to being practically different in a way and an outsider in a way, but also human as well. And I also resonated with John because he kind of gave Bernard a reality check. And as many of us were not pleased with Bernard's character, this kind of made me happy as I was reading the plot. John gave Bernard a spotlight towards the end of the book as we slowly transition out of Bernard being the protagonist and then John being the main one. John had no intention of being an fame seeking outsider and unorthodox person. He completely goes with the definition of being orthodox. He, unlike Bernard, He does not want attention from anyone for being different. In fact, I think John, at the beginning of his introduction of a character, hates this the most about himself. And like going back to the flashbacks as a younger boy, it obviously unraveled a lot of trauma throughout his childhood of being a sort of symbol of cultural divide within the story. And in the book, it goes, it was John, then they were all after. And as if to only through Bernard, his accredited guardian, that John could be seen, Bernard now found himself for the first time in his life treated not merely normally, but as a person of outstanding importance. And I thought this was a really important part of the plot line, as John had given Bernard what he finally wanted. And Bernard would go on to abandon John later in the story when he and Helmholtz were like, we don't want to be associated with this guy. John kind of gave Bernard this kind of spotlight, but then it's almost satirical in the way that Bernard loses his following so quickly within the world state after exposing John as the illegitimate son of the DHC. And I really resonated with his character at this point because he puts a reality check into most of the citizens' lives in the world state and in London. And they've never been exposed to something at this level or this capacity of foreignness. And so that is why I resonated with John's character. I think he's an incredibly important piece of the story, and his failure, his unableness to fix things between him and Lenina at the end, and his ultimate tragic death really symbolizes that though trying to see the world through an ideal view may come with negative consequences, being brave and being an outcast and being outspoken is our admirable traits of trying to stand up and trying to see the world through a rose colored lens. And I think John does a great job of doing that throughout the story. And although he kind of goes against all of his preaching of conditioning and stuff, I feel as after his mother's death, we really saw a new side to a character, and he developed a great deal throughout the plot, and that is why I resonated with John.